It is the morning of May 29th, 1453. The air above Constantinople is thick with smoke. Behind walls 40 feet high and 15 feet thick, 50,000 souls wait for death. The smell of gunpowder mingles with incense rising from churches filled with desperate prayers. This is the story of the day the Roman Empire died after 1123 years. Sultan Mehmed II has surrounded the city for 53 days with 80,000 warriors. His Hungarian engineer Urban built cannons so massive they require 60 oxen to move them. The Great Bombard fires half-ton stone balls that crack ancient walls like eggshells breaking. When it fires, the sound can be heard 10 miles away across the Bosphorus Strait clearly. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI commands 7,000 defenders and fading hope now. Venetian sailors, Genoese mercenaries, and Byzantine citizens stand together on crumbling walls. They have fought beside each other for weeks, bound by desperation and the certainty of doom. Constantinople was founded in 330 AD by Constantine the Great as the new Rome of the East. For over 1,000 years, it stood as the bridge between two continents and two worlds. Its triple walls of limestone and brick had never been breached by any enemy force before. The outer wall rises 40 feet. The inner wall towers 60 feet above the dry moat. Between them lies a killing ground where attackers die in waves, cut down by arrows and stones. 23 sieges had failed here. Huns, Persians, Arabs, Bulgars, all turned back defeated. The walls seemed eternal, as permanent as the mountains, as enduring as the empire itself. But Mehmed II is different from all who came before him with dreams of conquest and glory. He is 21 years old, fluent in 6 languages, and absolutely obsessed with this city. He studied every previous siege. He learned why they failed and swore not to repeat mistakes. The city once held 500,000 people in markets that sold silk from China and gold. Ships from Venice, Genoa, and Alexandria once crowded the harbors with goods from every land. Now barely 50,000 remain, huddled in churches, praying to icons with tears streaming. The streets are nearly empty, whole neighborhoods abandoned. Only the walls are crowded with life. The basilica cistern beneath the city holds enough water to last a year under normal siege. But the granaries are nearly empty now. Bread is rationed. Children cry with hunger at night. The Golden Horn, the natural harbor, is protected by a massive iron chain across its mouth. Mehmed tried to break it with ships. The chain held. So he did something no one thought possible. On April 22nd, his engineers built a greased wooden road over the hill behind Galata Tower. 70 ships were dragged overland on rolling logs by thousands of men pulling ropes together. The Byzantines watched from the walls in horror as enemy ships appeared inside their harbor. They bypassed the chain completely. By dawn, Ottoman warships floated inside the Golden Horn. The northern sea walls, which had never faced serious attack, were suddenly vulnerable to assault. Defenders had to be pulled from the main walls to guard the shore, weakening the entire line. Emperor Constantine knew then that unless a miracle came from God, the city was already lost. Genoese commander Giovanni Giustiniani arrived with 700 men and became military leader. He organized the defense, repaired walls at night, and kept morale from collapsing entirely. On May 28th, the Sultan offered one final chance: surrender now and live or die tomorrow. Constantine refused. That night, the city gathered in the Hagia Sophia for final prayers. Orthodox and Catholic clergy, who had argued for centuries, prayed together for the first time. The schism was forgotten in the face of extinction. Only survival and faith mattered now. The great dome echoed with hymns. Candles flickered on faces wet with tears and resignation. Families held each other close. Old men wept. Mothers clutched children who might not see dawn. The emperor knelt before the altar, took communion, then rode to the walls for the last time. He addressed his commanders in Greek and Italian, thanking them for their courage and loyalty. Then he rode the length of the walls so every defender could see him, a symbol of defiance. At 2 in the morning, on May 29th, Ottoman drums begin pounding a rhythm like thunder approaching. War horns blow across the dark plain. Torches light up by the thousands like stars falling. The first wave attacks. Bashi bazooks, irregular troops promised plunder if they breached the walls. They carry ladders and grappling hooks, screaming as they charge across the field toward death. The defenders watch them come like a human wave crashing against stone that will never break. Arrows darken the sky. Greek fire arcs over the walls, turning men into living torches, screaming. The Bashi bazooks die by the hundreds. Their bodies pile in the moat, creating stairs of flesh. For 2 hours, the slaughter continues. The defenders throw stones, boiling oil, anything available. Then the second wave comes. Anatolian regulars in leather armor and iron helmets, disciplined and grim. They march in formation with shields locked, pushing scaling ladders against blood-slicked walls now. The defenders are exhausted. They have been fighting for almost 2 months with little sleep. Their arms ache from swinging swords. Their voices are hoarse from shouting commands and prayers. Giustiniani fights like a demon on the walls, his sword red to the hilt with enemy blood. He is everywhere at once, rallying men, pushing back ladders, killing anyone who reaches the top. Emperor Constantine is everywhere, his purple boots covered in dust and blood and courage. He fights as a common soldier, shoulder to shoulder with Greeks and Italians who will die together. At dawn, disaster strikes. A cannonball wounds Giustiniani. He begs to be taken to a ship. Blood pours from his chest. He can barely stand. His men carry him down from the walls. His men, seeing their commander carried away, begin to waver and lose their fighting spirit. The Genoese fall back from their positions. The defensive line begins cracking under pressure. Then someone discovers a small postern gate called Kerkoporta, left open by accident or treachery. 50 Ottoman soldiers slip through the gap like water through a crack in a dam wall. They raise the crescent banner on an inner tower. Panic spreads faster than wildfire through ranks. Defenders see the enemy flag behind them. They think the city has already fallen from within. The Janissaries, elite slave soldiers in white felt hats, see the banner and surge forward, roaring. These are the Sultan's finest troops, trained from childhood to fight, kill, and never retreat. They pour through the Kerkoporta Gate and fan out behind the defenders on the main walls. The Byzantine line collapses like a rope cut under too much weight, snapping section by section. Men throw down their weapons and flee. Others fight to the death where they stand, refusing flight. Emperor Constantine XI tears off his purple cloak and removes his golden insignia slowly. He turns to his companions and says the ancient words, "The city is falling. The empire dies." Then he draws his sword and charges into the Ottoman lines. He vanishes into history forever. No one ever finds his body. Some say he died as a simple soldier, unnamed among thousands. By 8 in the morning, the Theodosian Walls fall silent. The screaming has just begun inside. Ottoman soldiers flood through the streets like a dark tide, seeking plunder, slaves, and glory. The Sultan had promised them 3 days of unrestricted looting as reward for the long siege. Churches are desecrated, icons smashed, altar vessels melted down for their gold and silver content. The Library of Constantinople, holding thousands of ancient Greek and Roman manuscripts, burns. Nuns are dragged from convents. Priests are killed at their altars. Blood runs in the gutters. Thousands are slaughtered in the streets. Tens of thousands more are chained for the slave markets. Children are torn from their parents' arms. Families are destroyed forever in hours of chaos. The Hagia Sophia, the greatest church in Christendom for 900 years, fills with refugees. They barricade the bronze doors, praying for the ancient prophecy. Angels will save the city. The doors are smashed open with axes. The refugees are taken. There are no angels today. Mehmed II enters Constantinople on a white Arabian horse at noon. Riding through the Constantine Gate, he proceeds directly to the Hagia Sophia, dismounts, and picks up a handful of dirt humbly. He pours it over his turban as a gesture of humility before God for this great victory. Inside, he orders the building converted into a mosque for Friday prayers 3 days hence. By the third day, Mehmed orders the pillaging stopped. The city is his now, not rubble. Over 50,000 Byzantine citizens are enslaved and marched away in chains to Adrianople markets. 4,000 defenders died on the walls. Thousands more died in the streets fighting and fleeing. The Byzantine Empire, the last living fragment of ancient Rome, ceases to exist on May 29th. An empire that had stood for 1,123 years ends in a single day. Mehmed is 21 years old and now controls the crossroads of the world between two seas. He will be known forever as Mehmed the Conqueror, Fatih, the Sultan who did the impossible. Constantinople is renamed Istanbul, though both names will be used for centuries to come afterward. Greek scholars and refugees flee westward, carrying precious manuscripts hidden under their cloaks. They bring Plato, Aristotle, and ancient knowledge to Italy, helping to ignite the Renaissance fires. The fall of Constantinople forces European merchants to seek new trade routes to the east. Spices, silk, and gold must now flow through Ottoman lands, and the Ottomans control the prices. Portuguese sailors will venture down the African coast. Columbus will sail west across the Atlantic. The age of exploration begins because the old road to the east is now closed forever. Today, the walls of Constantinople still stand, scarred by cannonballs from that terrible morning. The Hagia Sophia endures, converted to mosque, then museum, then mosque, again across centuries turning. May 29th is remembered in Greece as a day of mourning, the fall of the great city. In Turkey, it is a day of celebration, the conquest that made an empire a true superpower. The truth is more complex. It was the end of one world and the violent birth of another. History does not pause for grief. It moves forward, washing over the bones of fallen empires. Like and subscribe, because the next chapter of history is waiting, and it is just as extraordinary.